Hey everyone, welcome back to another layout update. I've made quite a bit of progress on the layout, especially in terms of a few things that are very obvious right now, but I'll start with a few less clear things. I've trimmed a lot of the plywood around the layout. Like here, it used to just have a right angle that went out to here, but I gave it more of a curve. It doesn't perfectly match the contour of the curves on the layout, mostly because I have to deal with structures like that. But it's a little closer, and it gives me a little more room outside of the layout, because one of the main reasons for building this layout was to give myself more room in this space that isn't just taken up by the layout. So I'm glad that I was able to do that. And over here, I did the same thing, and if I move this shelf a little bit, I'll be able to get back in there without having to go all the way around. Aside from that, I've done a few minor track work things, like shimming up the track in areas where it was dipping, or tightening or loosening screws put into the track to get the most flat and level look while the trains are running around, and I think I've achieved that. Like specifically back there, there was a pretty big dip, so I had to fix that, and so far I've been pretty happy with how all the track looks. Once I finished all the track, and I think for now most of the track work is in for good. I'm pretty happy with it. I've been running trains over it pretty heavily for the past few months, and it's holding up really great, and the trains look good running on it. Electrically, everything has held up. There might be a few changes I want to make, but generally, in terms of the permanent stuff, everything is good with the track. Now, what's definitely the most noticeable thing, and so far I would say the most unique thing about my layout, is the overhead catenary, or the overhead lines that I've put around the layout. And this has been a project a long time in the making. I started developing like my idea for a catenary system around half a year ago. But I sort of refined it over that time, and I managed to put something together that is very inexpensive, and it looks alright. It's not perfect, it's not completely professional, but I think from a distance, and if you are just observing it casually, it looks more than good. I suppose I'll take you on a tour of the overhead system, because there's some variance in everything that I had to put together. So let's start over here at this curve. And on the curves, I have a pole every 10 inches or so, and the wire is HO rail, as I've said in a few other videos. But we head around the curve here. And then the first unique structure is this, which is a Lionel signal gantry that hasn't had its signals on it for a very long time, so I thought that I'd use it for my catenary system. And any excuse to have a train sort of run through something is good with me, because I think it looks pretty cool. So then move on, there's just another typical mast. And then we have this structure. This is probably my favorite. It's a very long span that goes over 5 tracks, I want to say. Yeah. It doesn't have to. I could have easily just had one mast here and then another mast over there. But this just looks cool. Like, part of the reason why I wanted a catenary system is so I could have a giant span like this on the layout. And yeah, it turned out just about as good as I thought it would. And yeah, I have a few other variants of that on the layout. I have 3 of these on the layout. This is one of them. This is sort of when you want to span the inner loop, but you don't want to put a pole on the outside of the outer loop for some reason. Like for here, for example, I want to be able to put trains on the track and take them off in this little area. This is enough room for me to do so, but if I had a mast right here, that would be a lot harder, so this sort of makes it a little easier to do that. Moving on from this point forwards, I actually have some more unique catenary masts. These have a cross arm that is actually a 3D printed part. I wanted something that had sort of that truss look, maybe make it look a little more heavy, a little more industrial, I suppose. And these turned out great. I don't own a 3D printer, I used a program at a library. Check out your local library, or if you're at a school, you could also check out your school library. They probably have a 3D printing program, and you can just submit your files and they'll print them for you. So I had 10 of these cross arms printed, and they're great. They hold up well, and I think they look okay. So let's just move on over here. On this curve, instead of extending the table out like I did before when I sort of did my first test of catenary, I went with this cantilever structure, just like the one over there. It's almost identical. And I've neglected to mention these larger structures are made out of vinyl floodlight tower parts, of which I had a lot lying around. And I thought it'd be great to put them to use, because a lot of them were broken. So I put all those together. All the construction here was put together with super glue, at least here, and some twist ties. And, well, those sound like really unprofessional materials, but the result, I think, looks pretty good. Then moving on, we have more of the typical mass until we go back around and we loop back up to where we started. Now, the straight section back here is where I cheated a little bit. Originally, I was just going to have a pull every 10 inches, but I decided to go with a pull every 20 or so inches because I could get away with it on straight track. And I think it looks good. The joints of HO rail are just soldered together to make longer spans, and the pantograph doesn't really push up on the spans too much for them to look weird, so honestly, I don't really have a problem with that. All of the catenary structures, whether they be the smaller mass or the larger cantilever span things, bridges, I guess you could say. I don't know, there's a lot of words for those. All of those were painted in a primer gray. I did a poll on my channel to see what color you guys would want, and gray won. I also considered black and blue, and I also thought about a dark green a little bit too. But I ended up going with gray because it's a nice neutral color, and I personally like the look of it. It still feels industrial, but it's maybe a little more modern than like black or dark green. It's certainly not the most unique color. I think blue would have really been unique, and it would have really looked interesting, but I think it would have looked kind of odd next to some of my locomotives that happen to be similar or the same color. And the good thing about using primer gray is it's really easy to find the exact same color if you need to touch up something or make more catenary mass. It's kind of hard to do that with a specific shade of blue. And I did end up having to use maybe 2.5 cans of spray paint for all of my catenary structures. Now, as I've said, the contact wire is HO rail, but the secondary wire I haven't talked about. Now, I originally was just going to have the contact wire on there and leave it at that, but I thought it looked a little weird, and whenever you look at an actual catenary system, of course, there's more than one wire, there's two wires, and the wire at the top, which is called the secondary wire, makes the sort of bow between catenary mass, and that is the catenary. Catenary means a string sort of suspended by 2 points, or the curve that makes. So I decided to try to find a material that would work. I got a wire that is about a similar thickness, at least visually, to the contact wire. Again, it's not really scaled, but I think it looks appropriate. It's a hollow, flexible wire. It's the sort of thing that you would make bracelets or necklaces out of. And it comes in spools. Like, I got a pretty big spool of it, enough to do the entire layout without any breaks for like $2. So it was a pretty good deal, honestly. I think it looks fine. I just threaded it around here, tied it around the hooks here, and then did the same thing with every support. And then I put a dab of glue in there to sort of keep that knot tied. And then later on, I secured these little droppers, I guess. They're less droppers and more so hooks, but they sort of keep the secondary wire down a bit so that you get the curve, and so that it sort of keeps with the curve of the wire on the curved sections of track. Of course, in real life, there's really not such a thing as curved catenary unless you have a bunch of wires pulling in the direction of the curve. Usually catenary is just a straight line that's good enough for the pantograph, even on curved sections, but this is all I could really bother doing. I think it looks fine. I think it gives the general visual impression of what I want. And yeah, I think it turned out pretty good. All of the bases were painted sort of a concrete gray. It's sort of a warm gray made with, I want to say, equal parts white and tan, and then just add in a little bit of black to your preferred shade. And I think that turned out pretty good. I think that that's going to look great once I get ballast in there. So far, I'm really happy with it. I think it's a lot better than not having a system. And it just feels so right to see electric locomotives with the pantograph up, hauling around a train. And one final thing to mention about the catenary is I'm not exactly counting on it being hot or powered or live, whatever term you like to use. Because, well, I mean, the third rail's right there. It would be really cool to have the overhead live, but that would require maybe a little bit more precision than I can offer, and I'd probably have to rework a lot of things entirely. But this is really just for my own visual comfort, I guess, because for me it's a little weird to see my electric engines with the pantograph up not touching anything. So I think having it under a wire, it just is something that's pretty unique. You don't see a lot of model railroads with overhead wire, especially in O gauge. And it just sort of looks right. So tell me what you think of the layout. Tell me what you think of the catenary. I appreciate comments a lot. And ask for whatever you want me to show. If you want me to do a more in-depth video on catenary, I definitely consider doing that. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this layout update. And thanks for watching.